Hello, Central New York. Welcome to Off the Record with your weekly highlights of Delaware County news from The Reporter, the county's finest news source. I'm Andrew Cantor with the latest of what's happened and happening in the county this week. Did you know that podcast listeners can try the online version of The Reporter for free for a whole month? Now you do. A month-long digital subscription is $5, but we've got a $5 promo code, so effectively you get the month for free, and then you can decide if you want to keep getting your local news or you want to remain ignorant and confused. All you do is subscribe at the Reporter website, and that's the-reporter.net. Then you use the promo code SAVE5, that's all caps, SAVE and the number 5, and you basically get the subscription free for a month. After that, we think you're going to want to continue to subscribe, and we hope you do. And now here's a sampling of this week's Delaware County news. In case you haven't heard, there is a burn ban across the county because of the unseasonably dry weather. That means no bonfires, no campfires, no trash fires, no torches, in case you were planning to storm the castle. The ban does not have an expiration date, so county officials will just notify everyone when it is safe to start fires again. Early voting in Delaware County, which began October 26th, is off to a good start. As we record this, there have been more than 1,300 votes cast so far, putting the county on pace to surpass the 3,600 early voters from 2020, and that's when we were in the middle of a pandemic. Early voters, by the way, includes people who won't be able to make it to the polls and folks who just want to get their voting over with. If you're planning to submit an absentee ballot, remember it has to be postmarked by November 5th to be counted. And remember to flip the ballot over. The backside is where you can vote on whether to codify the Equal Rights Amendment of the state constitution. Delaware Valley Hospital's got some big expansion plans, and it is looking for county officials to give their blessing. And when we say big plans, we mean big plans. $60 million worth of plans that would expand the hospital into a healthcare hub. Well, they call it a medical neighborhood, and it would include in- and outpatient facilities all under one roof. Hospital officials are also talking about having health and wellness programs like nutrition classes, disease management sessions, even offering EMT training. The money for the project? It'll come from state and federal grants and, of course, community fundraising. But the first step is getting official support from the county, which would allow the hospital to start talking seriously about applying for that grant money. Oh boy, there was a bit of a hubbub at the county supervisors meeting on October 23rd. What was the big deal? Hamden Supervisor Wayne Marshfield gave the invocation. And he said something. You want to know what he said? What he said was, quote, "May those running for elected office recognize that they may come to power not to dominate or oppress those with whom they disagree, but to serve with compassionate acts of peace, justice, and reconciliation." And that horrific request got Chair Tina Mole all upset. She called it a partisan comment because apparently asking elected officials to be civil to people they disagree with is now a partisan thing. Just note that at least one previous invocation asked God to lower taxes, but Mole didn't have an objection to that. It looks like the Delaware County Electric Cooperative will be getting a nice chunk of change from the U.S. Energy Department, and that's to protect its electric grid from everything from storms to trees that fall because of pest damage. The Biden administration's program is awarding $2 billion to 32 projects across the country, and the co-op made the list. The money will pay for a whole long list of projects the co-op plans to implement, from better monitoring and forecasting of outages, modernizing its equipment, and making its 800 or so miles of electric lines better able to withstand storms. Actually, one way the co-op's going to spend the money is to buy taller equipment that'll let crews cut down the ash trees infected by the emerald ash borer. And those trees can be 80 feet high, and they are not kind to power lines when they fall down. The co-op covers a huge portion of Delaware County, especially the rural areas, and the grant should help it reduce how many times the power is knocked out and how quickly the lights can come back on. And now we turn to Looking Back, news from the reporter 100 years ago this week. After a honeymoon trip, Mr. and Mrs. Radford Moore returned to Claryville on Tuesday, October 21st, and the following Thursday evening, some of the residents of Claryville decided to give the happy pair an old-fashioned skimmington. When night had enshrouded the village, there were many dark forms seen hurrying toward the Moore domicile, armed with all sorts of noise-making implements, such as horns, tin kettles, and so on. At a given signal, the skimmington started, but evidently not enough noise was being made, for somebody secured a stick of dynamite. The dynamite was placed alongside the front walk, about 12 feet from the porch, and there discharged. There was a terrific crash, and every window in the front of the house was shattered, while all the rear windows in the house were cracked by the explosion. Fortunately, no one was injured when the dynamite went off, and those taking part in the skimmington hurriedly departed for their homes. In animal news, John Winsmore of West Meredith came near losing one of his best horses. The animal, which had been turned out to pasture, was missed Sunday, but although searched for by Mr. Winsmore and his son, was not discovered until Monday night, when it was found nearly submerged in a swamp and unable to move. 12 men who came to Mr. Winsmore's assistance were finally able to get a rope under the horse and, after considerable effort, to rescue it. Looking at possible crime, something out of the ordinary for these days took place in Bovina a couple of weeks ago, when a man by the name of York was employed by Fritz Berger, who lives in New York but owns a farm on the Bloomville Road. 2 days after he began work, he took one of Berger's teams, a heavy black team with a set of heavy harnesses and a buggy, purporting to go into Harpersfield. When he failed to return in 4 days, Mr. Berger was notified. He came to Bovina Center at once, and after an effort made to locate York, the case was put in the hands of state troopers who have been working on the matter for a week, but so far neither man nor team have been located. Finally, in horrific accident news, Oscar Rotzler had the misfortune to have 2 of his fingers crushed in a cog in the stone derrick of his quarry at Long Eddy last Wednesday. He is at present at his home in Bearston, while his son Donald looks after business. Returning to 2024, there is a lot more Delaware County news in this week's edition of The Reporter. You can read about the United Presbyterian Church's unique ministry. It's called Jeremiah Pottery, and it offers free classes to the community. And read why Delaware County is paying a lot more than it expected to for inmates' mental health services. And there's also a write-up of the Walton Cemetery scavenger hunt, and that's just for starters. Remember, to get all the news that matters to you and your Delaware County community, subscribe to The Reporter at the-reporter.net or call 607-464-4009. We'll see you next week.